button now. Okay, there we go. And we're going to go live on Facebook so that those that are missing out will be able to see it on Facebook. So, okay, it's doing some weird stuff first. All right, and we're good. Okay. Normally Carolina does that, so hopefully it's working. Otherwise, it's recorded at least on my computer. So, well, welcome everyone. I'm Nancy Pelton, I'm President and CEO of the Greater Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce. And thank you to Dale for leading the Leads group for the last few years. And we certainly appreciate all the great speakers that he is bringing to the group. It is great to actually hear. We heard from Suzanne Sherman speaking on the City of Palm Bay, and now we're very thrilled to have City Manager Scott Morgan of the City of West Melbourne. Scott has, I'm not sure, how long have you been there now, Scott?
12 years. I'm the senior guy in the county. I was the new guy just yesterday.
Yeah, so it seems so now. Okay, so is that why we now have Tim coming in so that you can transition on to your retirement? Or
that's the goal. My target date is next August 31st. So
it really, I was sort of kidding, but okay.
No, 11 plus months.
Wow. All right. Well, it is good to have a plan in place, and I think that sort of epitomizes West Melbourne. They are always on the ball. They always have a plan, and always looking forward to the future and planning for that very successfully. So without further ado, I give you Scott Morgan, City of West Melbourne City Manager.
All right. Thank you, Nancy and Dale. Appreciate this opportunity to address the Power Partners Leads group today and give you a little update on West Melbourne. So I've got 20 slides, try to do this in 10 or 15 minutes. And I think, as Dale indicated, be happy to entertain any questions that anybody has about anything. So I'll try to go through it fairly judiciously and leave some time for questions. So Nancy, if you can move us to the first slide. As many of you have had to experience this in your own business, the pandemic has caused challenges to the City of West Melbourne, like all organizations, and we feel pretty good about our resiliency and being able to continue to provide services without interruption in terms of our portfolio of services: law enforcement, public works, planning, building code enforcement. We have a pretty good amount of both our own city work, and there's a significant amount of construction, private construction going on in town. And the really good news is we thought a year and a half ago that the pandemic downturn might really affect our financial operations and position. And in fact, we're emerging stronger than ever. So, our city engineer passed away from COVID. We had our construction inspector in the hospital for a very long time, recovered, since retired. But we haven't had anybody else that's been hospitalized really seriously, just some absences that we were able to cover even in a small organization. So we're very blessed to have so far, not been overly impacted by the pandemic to where it has affected our services to our citizens and businesses of our community. So you all know that better than I do in your own businesses, but we think we're doing pretty well so far. And on the next slide, we start to talk about some of our highlights. So one of the things we wanted to talk about at first was infrastructure and public safety. And our big project on the horizon is development of a new water plant. So for those of you that aren't aware, for more than 40 years, the City of West Melbourne has purchased our water from the City of Melbourne. We even purchased it from the town of O'Galley before Melbourne and O'Galley merged. We most recently updated that agreement in 2013. Our Melbourne's water that we purchase is distributed through our own distribution system that we own and operate in its entirety. And we've determined we want to build a new water plant to become independent. And we completed that financial feasibility in 2017. and we completed the engineering and permitting feasibility in 2019. And now we're well underway towards implementation. We have completed a test well, which will also become a production well. And we have applied for what's called a consumptive use permit from the agency that allocates raw water supply. That's the St. Johns River Water Management District. And we expect to have that permit in hand before the end of the year. At that point, we give formal notice to the city of Melbourne that we're electing our opt-out provision in the contract. And then we have to be independent before the end of 2026. So we're on the time clock, but it's a major undertaking, about a $25 million undertaking. And we're very excited about this to serve the citizens and businesses and visitors of our community with a brand new water plant. Next slide. So the city council has set a high priority on improving our drainage, and so we've taken on several flood risk reduction projects in recent years, particularly since Hurricane Irma. But one of the things we really are trying to work on is keep in good maintenance the canals that are the city of West Melbourne's responsibility. About 2/3 of the major drainage canals that serve West Melbourne are the responsibility of others, primarily Brevard County and the Melbourne-Tillman Water Control District. But the ones that the city of West Melbourne is responsible for maintaining, we think we've done a very good job. We've bought a very expensive piece of equipment that you see on this slide. It's called a Menzie muck, and can actually operate from being in the canal, which, because a lot of the right-of-ways are very tight and tough, a lot of times it's the best place to get in and clean up the canal banks, as you see in this photo, to provide for improved flows during high flow events. And in the next slide, you'll see that, again, we are constructing improvements that reduce flood risk. So we have two big projects, one of which we've secured grant funding for, competitive grant funding we're very pleased to get, and we're about ready to go out to bid. And the other one is well under construction, about 40% constructed, both of which provide flood risk reduction, generally described as the area that would be east of 192, west of Derry, actually south of 192, between 192 and Henry, east of Minton and west of Derry. It's an older part of West Melbourne without modern flood risk reduction. And so we're doing some public projects that help reduce the risk of flooding in those older neighborhoods. Again, that second project is 100% grant funded, so we're able to get some other people's dollars to do those projects. Next slide. Can we get the next slide, please, Nancy? Moving from drainage to sanitary sewer, West Melbourne, for many years, the council's put a great emphasis on maintaining and improving our sanitary sewer system. And so with some grant money available through the Indian River Lagoon half-cent sales tax and two others, we were able to complete a grant-funded septic to sewer project for our 59 houses in our Sylvan Estates neighborhood off of Sheridan. We also completed a new sewer main under I-95 that will serve planned development that is west of I-95 and north of 192. So there's a couple of projects that will tie into that new sewer force main. We also completed a significant project that's a replacement force main project of an older force main that serves the entire northwest part of West Melbourne. We've got the third and final phase of that in the budget and about ready to go out to bid. And then every year we upgrade, rehab 3 to 4 sewer lift stations. We have 68 of them, so we do 3 or 4 every year. Gravity mains, we do what's called U-lining, which means in essence putting a plastic balloon that adheres to the walls of a clay gravity sewer pipe and keeps groundwater from coming in. And so we've done we think a very good job of improving the safety, reliability, and long-term performance of our sanitary sewer system. We were the only city in the county that had no sewer spills during Hurricane Irma, and we're very proud that our system's kind of that tight and that well maintained. Next slide. Another thing the city council's led West Melbourne is we think, one of the best city road maintenance programs in the county. We budget over $400,000, sometimes in excess of $500,000 to maintain our city roads. We've been fortunate not to let them get to where they have to be rebuilt or milled and paved. We're able to extend the life 10 to 15 years by micro sealing, and that way we're able to do more local roads by staying on top of it. So the council's been very supportive of staff trying to stay out ahead of our local roadway maintenance, and we're very pleased with that council commitment to our local roads. Next slide. We have invested heavily in the police department. We have a collective bargaining agreement that runs through the end of next year, December 31st and our pay is the highest in the county. We also completed a $3.25 million expansion renovation of the police station late last year, and it more than doubled our building as the city has grown. A little over 4 years ago, we had 40 budgeted officer positions. Now we have 52, so we've grown our authorized positions by 30%, which is greatly exceeding the growth of the city. So we think we have very good staffing. In addition, in the last 2 years, we used to have school resource officers at all the West Melbourne schools, but now the sheriff has picked up more of those, which has freed up officers to actually be reassigned back to patrol. So we think that serves obviously the schools from the sheriff's department for the SROs, but that also all the citizens and businesses of the city benefit by having more officers on patrol at any one shift. So in addition to growing 30%, the sheriff picking up some things that we were responsible for has expanded our police force. Next slide. So little less than a year ago, our voters in West Melbourne approved 5 proposed amendments to the charter. We have a 10-year process every 10 years, and the citizenry through a charter review committee made recommendations to the council. The council approved putting it on the ballot, and the voters approved those. And then also at that same election, we had Pat Bentley reelected, and then 2 new council members elected, Daniel McDowell and Stephen Frampus. And then the mayor, Hal Rose, was unopposed last time, and so he was reelected without facing an opponent. And at that time, he was honored by the Florida League of Cities. He's been in elected service to the citizens of West Melbourne for 20 years, which is really outstanding to have that longevity in your mayor. Next slide. Again, I think I mentioned early that the city of West Melbourne has emerged from the pandemic stronger than ever. We measure our fiscal year in September 30, so it's almost a year old now, but we had very good operations in our water sewer enterprise, operating income more than 1.3 million, and then our police pension fund assets increased by more than 1.8 million. The general fund increased also significantly, about 1.6 million. And our finance department does a really good job in our financial reporting and has received for 8 consecutive years an Excellence in Financial Reporting Award from the Government Finance Officers Association. Next slide. And the council has been able to reduce our tax rate. So for the fiscal year that's just concluding and everybody's paid their taxes, we had a tax rate reduction. Our millage rate in the current year is 2.5087. And then Wednesday of this week, the council is going to hold our public hearing on our tax rate for next year and our budget. And it's also proposed for a reduction once again to 2.242. That should be 28, not 22s in there. And we are one of the lowest tax rates in Brevard County and among similar sized cities in Florida. So if you own property in West Melbourne, you had the benefit of a very favorable tax rate. And we're very proud of that for both our homeowners and our businesses in West Melbourne. Next slide. We're also very proud of being fully funded of our police officer pension. When I started here in 2009, it was 53.6% funded. We took a number of significant actions, both as a city, as the plan sponsor, and as a pension board, as the investor of the police pensions. And so we've got to 100% 4 years ago, and we've hovered right around there ever since. So very sharp increase. You just don't see that, but a lot of people working together to be fully funded, and not many cities can say that. So we just don't want to have, future taxpayers pick up the obligation that current taxpayers should have. So being 100% funded means you're not pushing that obligation to future generations, which we feel very strongly about here in West Melbourne. Council, again, has been very supportive of putting in more than the minimum, has been one of our strategies. And now we have one of the lowest city contribution rates around, because during those prior years, we put in more than we needed to in order to get the plan fully funded. Next slide. The city is the fastest growing city by percentage in the county, has been for a very long time. The last official estimate we have goes back more than a year. So we're at 25,385. Again, year over year, 7%. We should be getting the April 20 census, and I expect that number might be adjusted upward a little bit. It was in 2010. But then obviously, we're going to have an estimate for 2021 based upon tearing off that census data when it comes out. So we continue to be the fastest growing city in the county by percentage. And the next slide, please. And then in terms of valuation, based on the property appraisers information, again, typically the fastest growing city in terms of property values in the county on a percentage basis, typically double-digit percentage, because of the growth and because of the increase in valuation of properties in West Melbourne, which again helps us keep our tax rate low, reduce our tax rate, because valuations continue to grow pretty significantly. Next slide. Building permit valuations, we had our record year in 2019 at 333 million in valuation. 2020, again, sort of number of permits about the same at about 4,800. Valuation fell to about 186 million, which is still a good year, but 44% less than 2019. We will finish this year between those two values. So, we're not going to reach the 2019 level, but we will exceed the 2020 level when 2021 is all said and done. In terms of our residential development, I think many of you know that we have, I think we're one slide up is the single family. So we have some new single family subdivisions that are getting closer to being built out. Our new neighborhoods are Eber Cove, Heritage Point, Johns Landing, Sawgrass Lakes, Palm Garden Lakes. Really, the only one with a decent number of houses still to sell is Palm Garden Lakes. The other four are very near completion. And then again, in 2020, we had 261 single family permits issued. We will be slightly lower than that in 2021, again, as these neighborhoods built out. But in terms of the next slide, the multifamily, West Melbourne had boomed after 10 years of not seeing a single new apartment project. Last year, we had 4 completed. There's one off of Durham Drive, a second off of Hollywood, a third off of Hibiscus, and a fourth off of John Rhodes. And there are 2 projects that are currently under construction. There's one at Minton and Heald, which you can see sort of the grading work and so forth. It hasn't gone vertical yet, but you can see what's gone vertical out at the Space Coast Town Center, west of I-95, south of 192. So 2 more under construction, and then another one in the planning process coming to the council Wednesday for site plan approval, also west of I-95, this one north of 192 near the Ellis interchange. That one is a different product type that's really, we haven't really seen in our market in South County. It's a lower density, single story, kind of looks like small single family homes. So not this 3 or 4 story with elevator product, but a different product, which that developer thinks will meet the needs of the marketplace with some fairly high rents planned. So we'll see the council considering that Wednesday of this week. Next slide. And commercial development has continued. We had 2 hotels open in 2021 and a third new hotel, which has been in planning and now building for kind of a long time. It's a True by Hilton product that's at the vacant property at US 192 and Circle Drive, just east of the Sam's Club there. And they should be ready to finally start site work out there. Then we also had a memory care center open at Minton and Heritage Oaks. Winn-Dixie opened, where the prior grocer had a nationwide bankruptcy and went out of business at 192 in Wickham. And then the Promise Cafe and Bakery in our park opened in 2020. Tough time to open right when restaurants are closing because of the pandemic or cutting back. So they're still trying to find their right business model in a tough environment. But we're glad they were able to complete their beautiful new building in the center of the park, which is shown there. And again, kind of just like our new water plants, our big public project over the next few years, our big private project is a big master plan development west of I-95. So one of the catalysts of that was the completion of the new interchange at Ellis and St. John's Heritage Parkway. And then again, the site work for the Space Coast Town Center is underway with vertical on the first phase apartments. And then we've also annexed some nearby properties and have been approved for future development. Probably the next activity you'll see will be north of 192. That's the Matthew development property, both a single family residential, and then the low density single story multifamily I described a minute ago up by the Ellis interchange. And then with some reserved commercial parcels on the frontage of the St. John's Heritage Parkway. So you'll see that within the next 6 months be under construction out there. Next slide. So again, our success is certainly not our own, but of all the citizens and businesses who are contributing to our economy and to the quality of life that we're enjoying. And even during a pandemic, we think that people that live and work and do business and visit West Melbourne are enjoying themselves as much or better than anywhere else they could be. So we're very pleased that we have a lot of support from our citizens and business community for some of the things that the city's working on. So that concludes the formal presentation. Took a little longer than I thought, but be happy to entertain any questions.
All right, is there anyone that has any questions at this time?
Yeah, Scott, I was wondering, where is the water plant going to be located?
That will be south of Henry on Park Hill. The city just bought a 3.4 acre property just immediately north of our finished reuse storage. And so it'll be essentially co-located with our existing public works and sanitary sewer location.
And then what percentage of West Melbourne is built out now?
We're about 80% built out. The remaining 20% is largely west of I-95, both south and north of 192. There are some infill lots, but the dominant part of West Melbourne that will be, developed in the next 5 to 10 years is going to be west of I-95, between 192, south of 192, and up to the new interchange.
And then that Space Coast Town Center, what percentage of that will be commercial?
To be determined. We have a flexible comp plan and zoning for that, with some minimum and maximums of the different uses. And so if the market is what the master developers hope, it will be largely commercial and office and corporate headquarter. But they've sort of reserved the right, if that market doesn't materialize, to have a percentage of multifamily, because there's still a pretty good housing demand in the south part of the county. So can't tell you. I can tell you what the limits are, but not what it'll end up being. That's going to be market driven.
Thank you.
Curiosity, when you guys bring the new water plant on, what's that going to do to the water bills? Is it going to lower them, stay the same? Will they go up? What's your thoughts on that?
We're planning on having it be the same or lower. We already did a slight reduction in our variable rate, sort of in anticipation. But we're a little bit wait and see to see, because in the meantime, if Melbourne increases their rates, we have to pass that along to our ratepayers. But so far, in the upcoming year, Melbourne's not raising their rate, so we're at least good for another year. But the financial plan that we adopted in 2017 shows no rate increase for the water plant.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question today? Seeing none. Scott, we really appreciate you and Tim coming on today and being a part of this, taking the time to do this. We really do appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Dale, and thank you to Nancy at the chamber for working us through the slides and all that you all do for our community. We very much appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, sorry about that, Scott. I've never had a problem moving slides like I did today.
That's all right. You should have given it to me, and that would have been a worse mess, right? I mean, you did great. But if you'd have given it to me, we'd still be out there till 3 o'clock this afternoon. So
if anybody would like to have access to that, is that a problem if we share those?
No problem. You can share it however people would be. Again, and be happy to answer any questions. If people have any specifics, be happy to tell. We like to let businesses know what's sort of coming so that they can plan. Obviously, we've got, existing competing businesses, whether you own a hotel or you own an apartment building. You have single family homes you're trying to sell. We're growing, and we understand, that creates more competition, but we think, there's enough demand in our market for this, or people wouldn't be risking their capital. Now, at some point, those things are going to get built out for a while. We know how that works. Sometimes things get overbuilt and then the market has to correct. So I suspect we're probably not going to see any more hotel proposals, and we're winding down on the multifamily. It'll be interesting to see if we get some more single family demand, but I think those two are getting closer to being played out.
I can tell you as a real estate broker that the demand for single family homes is still huge. As I'm sure you already know, there's just not enough of them in the market right now, even with all the new homes coming on. I spoke to one builder just recently, had to put a hold on the, selling any new homes because they had such a demand of homes to build currently. They couldn't take on any more. And so they had to actually put a hold on building or selling any new homes until they get the ones that they've already planned. And they're 18 months out on the ones they already have planned. So,
yeah, that we hear that too. I mean, our newest subdivision's very small. It's only 25 units, but lifestyle homes, if you go out there are almost none unspoken for lots, even ones that haven't, started, the foundation work yet. So it's sort of all being constructed at the same time, which we saw a little bit of that in Sawgrass with D.R. Horton, where you have a lot of houses sort of all under construction at the same stage at the same time. But that one's selling out faster than we've seen.
Yeah, most of the new products are being sold before they ever break ground. And it's just crazy. And of course, the demand for apartments right now is just unfathomable. It's just huge.
Yeah, we a year and a half, 2 years ago, we were getting 2 or 3 inquiries a week from out of state apartment developers trying to find sites. So we know that was sort of a frenzy. I think we've seen that become more moderated more recently. There's still some inquiry, but all of our good sites except for one, are pretty much spoken for, either completed or under construction or getting final approval. There's one left that's a good site off of John Rhodes, and that's kind of it. And that may come through our planning process, but it's definitely not like it was when we were getting inquiries and landowners were speaking with multiple apartment developers. A lot of those have gone through our process, but yeah, I'd say the demand is still high, but I think I would say we're past the peak is my estimate. And again, my, knowledge is West Melbourne. I can't speak to the broader market, but I think my opinion is that we're past the peak.
Anyone else?
Just wanted to welcome Tim aboard, and we're looking forward to working with you as well. And hopefully you'll be able to come to some of the chamber luncheons. We have them there at Promise, first Wednesday of every month. So be nice if you'll be able to come and meet everybody in the business community. We certainly appreciate the support of West Melbourne. They've always been terrific. So
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Scott, Tim, you guys are welcome to hang around if you want to. If you've got to go.